The United States has been providing an average of 54 million US dollars per year in military aid to the Philippine government, up from 1.6 million annually in the period after the closure of the bases and before the signing of the Visiting Forces Agreement. So you would understand why the Philippine government signed such an unequal agreement. What we have in the Philippines today are not main operating bases that serves as the hub of operations, just like what we have here in Korea and in Japan. What we have instead are forward operating sites, smaller, more sparse bases that could be expanded and then scaled down as needed for storage or prepositioned equipment that normally involve a small number of troops on rotation. But what we have in very common is what you'd call the CSLs, the cooperative security locations, or what is commonly known as the lily pads, intended to provide U.S. mission presence and limited access in the Philippines. I tried to skip some of the paragraphs just so I could keep the time. The Joint Special Operations Task Force in the Philippines, which are what the U.S. troops are called down in Mindanao, fits the description of forward operating site. And we have now in the Philippines a base within a base, complete with communication facilities. These special forces are trained in counterinsurgency operation, just like what you see in other countries. And they have of late joined some of the military operations of the Philippine military troops against in their counterinsurgency operations. There are proofs and there are testimonies that we are getting that the special forces are engaged in combat operations and in secret missions, especially in Mindanao. The United States Institute for Peace, U.S. government-funded institution, described the role of U.S. forces deployed in Mindanao. In its 2008 report, the deployment of U.S. forces in Mindanao was not for humanitarian missions, as they claim it to be, or civic actions, but for specific military objectives. In the aftermath of 9/11, the United States grew particularly concerned that Mindanao could become a training ground and sanctuary for international terrorists. And this concern led to the expanded U.S. military assistance to the Philippine government and the armed forces of the Philippines. They are also engaged in in intelligence gathering, and we have seen the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, which Lauren has been talking about this morning. And these are well documented. The U.S. military has a fleet of various unmanned spy planes, from a palm-sized remote-controlled aircraft to sophisticated high-altitude, long-range, remotely piloted vehicles designed for long-endurance photographic reconnaissance. And they use this in the Philippines today. Humanitarian missions and civic actions, they have become standard excuse for the United States and the Philippine government for the joint military exercises and training in different parts of the Philippines. With our long history of anti-bases struggle, the People's Movement for Peace and Sovereignty has called for the immediate abrogation of the Visiting Forces Agreement and all other laws that are related to this. That is the great bulk of our work today, because we know that the continuing presence of US troops in the Philippines lie in the presence of this very unjust agreement. And recently, campaigns were launched, especially in the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision on the Nicole case. The first ever to reach the court. This is a case of rape where the American soldier was convicted, but custody has never been given to the Philippines, and the rapist is now in custody of the US Embassy. And